like you. Be strong to hold the powers of the sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one.
Hello everyone. Have you ever watched something that feels too calm to be called acting? Too natural to be a script? And too consistent to be dismissed as coincidence? Are you sure? It's not about tourist destinations, not about hidden cameras, and certainly not about an ordinary trip. It is a story about two people sharing the same space, without distance, without defenses, without the need to prove anything to anyone. There are no grand confessions. No manufactured emotional explosions. What exists instead are repeated small touches, comfortable silences, and a closeness that feels honest. In this video, we will not discuss rumors. We will not twist clips out of context. We will not force meanings that are not there. We will simply look at what is actually shown. Body language, nonverbal cues, word choices, and the quiet moments that somehow speak the loudest. Because when something is real, it does not shout. It does not need to defend itself. It simply exists. And it is felt. Every moment Jimin and Jungkook share in Are You Sure? Feels like a story that refuses to be forced. It is not noisy, it does not chase dramatic climaxes, and it does not aggressively demand attention. And that is precisely where its strength lies. This relationship flows naturally, built from small gestures, silences that are never awkward, laughter that appears without being summoned, and a closeness that is far too consistent to be reduced to mere entertainment. From the very first episode, it is clear that this show is not just about traveling or ticking off activities. It is about them. About a bond that was formed long before the cameras were turned on. About two people who genuinely know each other, feel safe with one another, and are connected on a level that requires no official announcement. From the earliest moments, Jungkook shows something deeply honest. When he is with Jimin, he lowers all his defenses. His body instinctively moves closer, as if the camera is nothing more than an irrelevant background. His hand reaches for Jimin without hesitation, resting on his leg, tracing his arm, lingering near his neck. These touches never feel staged. On the contrary, they are constant, spontaneous, and often seemingly unconscious. And there is only one reason someone can behave like that consistently, because they feel safe. Because the person beside them feels like home, not someone they need to keep at a distance. These small details speak far louder than any dialogue ever could. Jungkook almost always tries to erase the physical space between them. No matter how big the room is, how long the sofa is, or how many seating options are available, he always ends up right next to Jimin. Close. Sharing the same space. As if, for Jungkook, that is simply the most natural position. The most correct one. Someone who feels uncomfortable will pull away, set boundaries, or become stiff. Jungkook does the opposite, again and again from episode to episode. With no shift in attitude. With no attempt to lessen the closeness. That is why all the narratives circulating before the premiere now feel deeply ironic. Some insisted that Jungkook would look uncomfortable. That he would seem forced, cold, or distant. Others even claimed that Jimin had pushed him into doing Are You Sure? As if Jungkook had no agency or voice of his own. All of those assumptions collapse from the very first episode, when it is revealed that Jungkook was the one who proposed the show. He did not merely agree. He was enthusiastic. He was involved. He was creative. In fact, he suggested a very specific concept, filming in a way where they would not always know exactly when the cameras were rolling, in order to capture the most honest and spontaneous reactions. That idea came from him. And the satisfied expression on his face when the proposal was accepted is a simple yet powerful proof that he was there by his own choice. No coercion. No tension. Just someone who felt heard and respected. As the episodes go on, that comfort does not fade. It deepens. Jungkook becomes more relaxed, more at ease, and even closer to Jimin. And it is at this point that some people begin to feel uncomfortable, not because of what is happening, but because the old narrative can no longer be maintained. When reality can no longer be denied, another tactic appears, cutting context, isolating a single sentence, and twisting its meaning. The clearest example is the conversation where Jungkook, in an unmistakably sarcastic tone, refers to everything as business. Anyone who watches that scene in full immediately understands the atmosphere. There is laughter. There is warmth. There are knowing looks. There is not even a hint of coldness. And yet that one line is treated as if it were an official statement, while his body language is completely ignored. Because when Jungkook calls it business, he does not let go of Jimin's hand. Even when Jimin laughs and tries to pull his hand away, Jungkook does not allow it. He holds on tighter, smiles, and continues the joke. If he truly wanted to set boundaries, touch would be the first thing to disappear. But the opposite happens. When that narrative falls apart, another accusation surfaces, that Jungkook is not brave, easily manipulated, and that his happiness is merely an act. But happiness like this cannot be faked. You cannot sustain comfort this calm, smiles that come without effort, and closeness that remains even in silence, if it is all just performance. All of these theories collapse completely when they talk about the future of Are You Sure? In calm, certain tones, they say this is not the end. They will return. They will travel together again. Jungkook mentions Busan, his hometown, a place filled with personal meaning. Jimin mentions the North Pole, a big, almost impossible dream, yet full of imagination. Two very different destinations, united by one shared desire, to continue exploring the world together. And that is where their greatest strength lies. They do not need to defend themselves. They do not need to explain anything. They simply exist, warm, supportive, comfortable, joyful, and real. Are You Sure? Is filled with moments like these, from beginning to end. Including the bed scene, a moment that is still being talked about to this day. The more it is watched, the more layers reveal themselves. There is always a new detail, a small movement, a camera angle, or an intention that once felt subtle. One of the most important details is a single word deliberately shown by the editors. A term used to describe someone who is deeply attached, almost obsessed, with their hyung. Its placement is not accidental. That word defines the dynamic, the roles, and the energy, something Jungkook displays effortlessly. Jimin is relaxed, holding his phone. Jungkook moves closer, without hesitation, without measuring distance. He climbs on top of Jimin as if it is the most logical position in the world. There is no rejection, no tension, only an acceptance that feels routine, as if this is not the first time, and clearly not the last. This season also reveals another pattern that becomes increasingly difficult to deny, the way Jungkook addresses Jimin. Without honorifics. Not once, but repeatedly. In Korean culture, this is not a trivial detail. And there is no correction. No awkwardness. Just quiet acceptance. This is not theory. This is language. This is culture. This is repetition. And when something happens repeatedly, it stops being coincidence. It becomes a message. Playful. Intimate. Consistent. And after all of that, every small touch, every erased distance, every laugh that appears without obligation, one thing becomes increasingly clear. A relationship like this does not need to be upheld by words. It does not live on theories. It exists in unshakable comfort. In silences that never feel empty. Are you sure? Does not give us explicit answers. And perhaps it was never meant to. Because what it gives instead is far more honest. Space to see, to feel, and to understand, without being forced to conclude anything. If you feel it, you know. If you see the pattern, you understand. And if you choose to deny it, that too is a choice. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this kind of analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so we can continue discussing the small moments that are often dismissed, even though that is where the greatest meaning quietly hides. See you in the next moment.